You brought in Emmanuel Adebayaga yesterday, was it? Yeah, last night. Just tell me a bit about him and what it is you feel he'll bring to the club.
Well, I think the back line was an area that we've been looking to strengthen for a number of weeks. Discussions have been ongoing with Manny and his representatives and Norwich about the opportunity to try and bring him here to Dundee United, and delighted in the end to get that finally sealed yesterday. He's had a great pre-season with Norwich. He's spent the last 6-7 weeks with their first team. They've been on tour in Europe, and he's played a number of minutes as well in the first team. So he's had a great pre-season. He's ready to go, and he's another really good player. I think really good addition that will give us strength and depth in that back line, but also real competition in that area.
How much do you feel you have the squad now that will serve you well going forward in the Premiership, or do you still feel there's additions to make? Because I know you wanted to strengthen the back line. Now you've done that a bit. Is there more to come, or do you feel ready now?
I think we've been a little bit unfortunate in a couple of instances with the likes of Ross Docherty and Ryan Strain picking up the injuries that they did. Ross is not a million miles away from making a return, but obviously the Ryan Strain one was a bit more serious with the muscle injury that he sustained. So, Ryan's going to be out for a considerable period of time, and that's a real blow to us, given how hard we worked to try and bring him to the club and how influential a player we believed he could be. So, we're still looking to strengthen in a couple of areas. I am delighted with the squad that we've got here right now, and I think the important thing for me as the manager is to focus on the players that I have at my disposal right now and those who are available to me. And if in the weeks ahead, prior to the window closing, we manage to add to that, then great. But I think once we've got a fully fit squad, I think we're in a very good place.
And Ross Docherty, you mentioned him. How far away do you think he is from fitness?
He's not a million miles away. Like I said, he's back out running and doing a lot of exercise with the medical team and with the sports science team, and we would hope in the next kind of 7 to 10 days that we'll get him back in with the group and involved in the contact sessions, and then we'll really find out where he's at. But I think we're trying to be fair to Ross, given the type of character he is. He would make himself available today if he could, but given the history of what went on last season and the accumulation of injuries, I think we need to make sure that we've got him right before we bring him back into the group. And I think in another 7 to 10 days, I think we'll have him back involved.
And have you made a decision on the captaincy for this season? Because obviously Ross was the captain last season, but he's obviously still out at the moment. What's the situation there?
Yeah, Ross will remain as the club captain, and then game to game I'll decide who's going to wear the armband. Babunski had it against Dundee on Sunday. I think he deserved it given his performances in pre-season and what we see of him in training every day. Got a great attitude, a real model professional, a great example to the younger players within the group. But like most managers say, the armband is irrelevant really, who wears it, because I believe we've got a number of good quality leaders in the team. The likes of Declan Gallagher and Ross Graham and Holty and Craig Sibbald, to name but a few. So, Ross Docherty will remain club captain, and hopefully we'll have him back on the park soon.
And Tony, he was your vice captain last season. What's the sort of situation with him? Because obviously, he's perhaps find it hard to break into the squad given the new faces that have come in. But is there still a place for him?
Yeah, Tony's still here. He's still under contract. He's still a member of the squad, and he's fit and available. And the hard thing for me every week is picking a squad of 20, given the quality that we've got available.
How pleased are you with those who you brought in and seeing them in the game against Dundee, which was a fantastic game at the weekend? How pleased were you with how they sort of dealt with that atmosphere, and how much positives do you take from that game going forward?
Well, I think when you bring any new players to the club, as a manager, you're desperate for them to hit the ground running and for them to show the public why you've invested in them. I think when you look at the couple of goals that we scored, all of the new lads have had a significant involvement in them, particularly the first one where Babunski plays that brilliant slide ball in behind for Yort, and then Yort's got the presence of awareness around him square it to Trapanovsky. So the three of those combined brilliantly. And I think those new guys have settled in really well. You know, we've got a couple within the squad that have obviously come in a little bit later. You know, Odada has only really had a couple of weeks of pre-season, whereas the rest of the guys have had 8-9 weeks now. So we have to be careful with the big fella and make sure that we get him up to speed and are fair to him in terms of not throwing him in at the deep end. You know, we want to be able to show the best of him as well, and the only way we'll do that is when we get him fit and up to speed. Meshak, another one who's obviously just came in recently, a really exciting one for us, a wide player who can play on the left, can play on the right, very attacking minded, very positive, again a little bit behind the rest of the group in terms of fitness. So we'll continue to work with those guys and continue to push them in training to make sure that they get the fitness levels that they require. But you know, a lot's been said about the new signings that we've brought in. I think it would be amiss of me, you know, not to mention the guys that were with us last season and got us into this position in the first place. You know, I thought Declan Gallagher on Sunday had one of his best games in the last 5 years, to be honest. And if Gal can play like that consistently, then you know, he's one of the best centre backs in the league. You know, Ross Graham and Kevin Holt as well, Jack Walton in the goal. All of these guys really contributed last season, along with others. And you know, it's going to take everybody here at the club in order for us to have the kind of success that we hope to have this season.
How much confidence and sort of excitement does it give you? Because coming back into the league and going up against a Dundee team who last season did do very well, to do so well against them, and also you were disappointed not to win the game, you know, that must give you huge confidence and excitement for what the season might hold.
Yeah, I mean, I had no concerns over the technical element of the game, but I did say after the game that I was slightly concerned about the physicality and whether we could match the strength and the fitness levels of Dundee, because you know, Tony Docherty's got them really well organised and well drilled, but they're a very aggressive team. You know, they've the couple of strikers that they even bring off the bench, you know, Curtis May, and another strong inclusion into the team, and you know, our back lads had to stand up to that, and I thought they'd done that really, really well. You know, in the first half I felt we could have had another goal at least, and obviously the Trapanovsky one where he's through one-on-one was a real key moment in the game to put us 3-1 in front. But over the whole piece, when I watched the game back, you know, I think the tactical decision that Tony Docherty made in the second half to change to a back four, I think that certainly worked for them. And, you know, in that last 20-25 minutes, I think they'd done enough to earn a draw, but still hurting a little bit from the opportunities that we had to increase our lead.
And of course you face Ross County this weekend too. You know, how big a test will that be? Because obviously themselves found themselves at the lower end of the table last season. You know, what's your thoughts heading into that game?
Well, I went to the Motherwell Ross County game on Saturday, with our game being on the Sunday, and yeah, I was very impressed with Ross County. I think Motherwell, probably on chances created, maybe feel as if they should have won the game, but you know, Ross County again looked very well drilled. You know, a lot of time for Don Cowie. His brother Paul, who was our academy director last season, has went up to join him and to support him up there as well. So Paul will have a fair insight into me as an individual and how we like to do things, so he might be able to drift some inside information into Don in terms of what our setup looks like. But I think, you know, listening to Don's post-match interview, I think he was really, really pleased with the fact that they kept a clean sheet and that they managed to pick up a draw on the road, which is something that, you know, in last season they weren't able to do a great deal of. So it was a positive result from it as far as they're concerned. It's going to be a difficult game. It's always a tricky game up in Dingwall anyway, and it's one that our players will find a lot different to what Sunday was. You know, and we've spoke about that during the week. It's easy as a group to motivate yourself for big games like the Dundee Derby, but you know, this Saturday is slightly different. It'll be a different atmosphere, but one that we have to approach with the right mindset.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Your preparations for last week with all the hype and it being the first game back in the Premiership against Dundee, was that any different to how it's been this week?
I mean, you know, not really. We prepare the same way every week. You know, we try and focus on ourselves, you know, more often than not in terms of what our preparations are, how we're going to hurt the opposition in the ball. and obviously we do, give a little bit of attention to the opposition as well to try and identify what their strengths are and, things that we need to be wary of with the opposition. But the main focus is always on what can we improve on, and that's what we done after the game on Sunday. We analysed the game back, we looked at certain areas that we could have done better, but we also, complimented the group as well on the things that they've done well. I think the structure of the team is very good. I think the understanding of what's been asked out of possession is certainly there for everyone to see. I don't think we've done well enough in possession on Sunday. I think that's something that we will continue to try and improve on. It's still a relatively new, group of players who are still getting used to each other as well. And I think that will come in time. Excuse me. But, I thought it was a really positive performance, particularly that first 45 minutes. The supporters were exceptional as well, and that's what a lot of the new lads were talking about after the game, that they hadn't quite played in an atmosphere like that in their careers up to now, and they really enjoyed it. And I think that's a great thing for me as a manager, to know that some players, when they go into those situations, you either sink or you swim, and our big players really stepped up, the likes of Babunski and Van der Sand up top, Trapanovsky with the goal, and possibly could have had another as well. The boys at the back were outstanding, I thought, all afternoon. There's a couple of issues within the goals that we conceded that we know we can do better, but all in all I think it was a really good performance, and one that we can certainly build on.
How much do you think that the performance on Sunday was benefited by having these competitive games in a week before you started the league session?
Well, listen, there's an argument for, pros and cons with the League Cup, and when it, those fixtures come upon us, I don't think, too many teams are ever fully prepared for the competitive football. We've always got a bit of recruitment to do. Fitness levels aren't quite where they need, where you would like them to be, but, in saying that, every other team is in the same boat. But yeah, I thought the game probably that prepared us the most for the Dundee game was the game against Luton the week before, and it wasn't by fluke that we designed it that way. We wanted to play against a really stiff opposition. We wanted to play against a team that was going to give us a real test out of possession, and I thought it worked perfectly actually, and you could see that in the performance of the players. The shape of the team was excellent. We've conceded the first goal, we give away cheap possession. The second goal is a penalty. When you actually look at the quality in both of our goals, we could have and possibly should have won the game last Sunday. But listen, a point is not a disaster. It's a step in the right direction, and as I said, plenty for us to build on.